Welcome back to the Direct Response Podcast. I'm your host, Travis Ketchum, founder of Campaign Refinery, joined today by David Cartolano behind Wealthy Inbox, the place to grow, scale, and exit a newsletter.
Hey, I love that. That was great, Travis.
Yeah, get it fine-tuned eventually here, right?
Yeah.
So today is a nice quick hitter, but it's actually more of a follow-up to an episode we did previously where we talked about upsell versus downsell. And we wanted to spend some time to expand a bit on the most critical part of a successful funnel and the upsell downsell process in general, which is a low ticket front end. So hit me with what is a low ticket front end, David?
Yeah. So the way I like to define a low ticket front end or low ticket offer or just front ends, they're all the same. It's something that solves a simple problem that can lead someone else to another problem. That's it. So if I were to give an example of what that is, if I was selling, I don't know, if I was in the weight loss industry and I wanted to get people into my weight loss program, well, there are people that aren't ready to drop down $5,000 for a personalized one-on-one 6-month coaching program, but they might be ready to say, hey, I still want a little bit of help, and this guy looks kind of reputable. So I would say, all right, cool. Here's my 3 foods to avoid in the morning before 10 a.m. to help you keep a slimmer figure or whatever. And that's it. That is the low ticket. I could make it free, but low ticket, we're actually really talking about money. So that would be $7, $9, $27, $29. Something around that area where it's just an impulse buy. They shouldn't have to think about throwing down their credit card.
Yeah, and that can vary a lot depending on the demographic you're going after, right? So
Right.
if you're in the subprime market, that might be a $1 or $3 thing, right? Whereas if you're in the luxury department, that might be a $500 purchase, might be considered low ticket, right? It's you think about it as a proportion of their income and buying power. And how much do they have to stress about it? Like, if this decision goes poorly, have they actually risked anything monetarily, reputationally, and emotionally, right? Because no one likes to look stupid. No one likes to burn money. But, to you and me, a hamburger at McDonald's, no big deal, right? To Bill Gates, a hamburger at McDonald's is really no big deal. In fact, it could be the $5,000 Wagyu burger at, some fancy restaurant, and it's still no big deal because the time he's pondered the thought of that, he's already made more than that just existing. So the scale can vary wildly, I think, is the important piece. But when you think about most markets, I think you're right. You're really talking at least sub 100, usually even 30 or less on that low ticket front end. And the goal is really to activate them from looky-loo prospect to actual bona fide customer, because someone's not a customer until you convince them to open their wallet and spend any of their hard-earned money with you. And that does definitely change your relationship. You can probably give some examples from your past. I know I certainly can, about situations where once I bought into something, I started to get more invested in the ideology and the solution of that particular provider, which then naturally led me to ascend through that upsell downsell funnel we talked about before. But if that initial transaction hadn't happened, there's not that bond of customer relationship, which is definitely different. And it is far easier to step back and try to reevaluate your options to achieve your goal from someone who has a completely different philosophy.
Absolutely.
Does that feel fair?
Yeah. And I can tell you from my personal experience with working on many people's lists, it was so much easier to send an email to a buyer to make a sale than to try and send out entire sequences to people who they might have gotten a free ebook, which don't get me started on those. So like the difference between someone that's actually opened their wallet is astronomical. Now, you have to be careful though, because if somebody opens a wallet to like a $1 product, they can be a real pain in the ass customer. So you have to be very careful about the type of people you bring in on a low ticket. And another thing I do want to say, I almost want to amend the thing that I said about, the three foods you want to avoid in the morning. I think low ticket, though, should not mean low value. don't put out fluff that they can Google. You know what I mean? Like, people will do that, and it's pretty. I don't like saying a market is saturated, because mediocrity is saturation. So I guess if you put out a low ticket product that is terrible and it's something that they could Google and it's incomplete because you don't want to give away the farm, then yeah, then your low ticket sucks. So it has to actually solve the problem completely and fully. So I do want to strike out my previous answer. So like, bad 5 minutes ago, David. Because at the end of the day, the low ticket does have to solve a problem completely and utterly. So that way it leads them to a better problem.
Yeah, but so I would like to go a little bit deeper on that thought, because when I think about designing a low ticket product, I think about it should design a very specific, very attainable problem. So you may think that your more expensive whole hog, the whole enchilada solution is like, let's say we're going with the fitness example, right? The whole example is you're going to get down to 9% body fat. You're going to run, the best marathon of your life. You're going to look great. Your clothes are going to, fit differently, and you're going to have amazing sex. Let's just go down the whole thing, right? The whole lifestyle transition. That is an unrealistic claim and an unrealistic goal for a low-end front-end product, right? So instead, we'd say, okay, if someone is on this arc and they may want to eventually be dedicated enough to change their diet, change their workout routines, change their lifestyle to achieve that greater outcome eventually, we have to start in the beginning. It's kind of like the old saying, how do you eat an elephant one bite at a time? And so you may say instead, how to get stronger in 2 weeks so that your back stops hurting when you get up in the morning, right? That might be a very achievable thing, because you might say, hey, do these 4 different motions 3 times a week for 2 weeks, and you'll be amazed at your core strength, and your back will magically stop hurting quite so bad, right? And that's
medical
something that's
disclaimer, medical disclaimer, medical disclaimer.
Sure. But you get my point. It's like you're narrowing the scope. You are making it something that anyone feels like they can achieve, which is easier to write and copy. It's easier to deliver in terms of fulfillment. And it's much easier to have a much higher success rate, because, hey, I'm not asking you to do that. I'm asking you to go, step 0.5 on your journey to a better physique and better health. And by doing it that way, people understand, okay, the value of what you're offering me here is closer to my goal. There is an explicit milestone that I can measure that got me closer to my goal. And you've essentially proven that you know what you're talking about, because for a low stakes amount of money, you got me closer to my goal than I've done Googling, than I've done on my own, than I've done watching YouTube videos, right? And because I paid you a little bit of money, I'm definitely like somewhat more committed to following your philosophy than I was from the free information. And when they then yield that result, that's when that relationship really transforms. And that's when it's like, well, if that was great, what happens if I do that, did buy 100 things for this person? I'll be 100 steps closer to my end goal. And so understanding that that's how the arc works, and really narrowing the scope to solve one subset of the problem completely, that is how I try to think about front-end products on their path to the bigger transformation.
I think that's a beautiful way of saying it. It's just solve a realistic problem for the realistic price. And I can tell you what not to do. I've seen a couple of low ticket offers where it was like, yeah, there's 30 marketing courses for $7. I'm like, wow, you've just convinced me that all of those courses are shit. Every last one of them. What a waste of my time and what a waste of your ad spend. So having a realistic outcome, like you just said, the whole, try for 2 weeks these exercises and movements to free up your back. I love that. That's straight up. It's simple. It could be PDFs. PDFs are, I figure, they're a bit of a harder sell. So it's easier to say like instruction manual. It's easier to say booklet. You can say
guide,
a
playbook,
video course, guide, playbook. Exactly. Yeah. But it's supposed to be something small, and unfortunately, most people won't actually take action on it. But what's important is that they did give you their credit card, which means they gave you at least some level of trust. So even if they don't go through it, you can still nurture them, build a good relationship, and maybe hopefully they'll become a customer one day.
Yeah. And so the whole goal here, just to really like drive it home for people as we sort of wrap it up here, is we know that the conversion rate from someone who's giving you even $1 is much, much, much higher for them to give you $100, $1,000, $10,000, and so on, right? The conversion rate at each point becomes dramatically exponentially better if they've given you anything. And if you think about in economics, price elasticity, the amount of people that are willing to give you a certain amount of money, especially for an initial transaction, drops precipitously as the price goes up. Even free to $1 is a big drop, but then the drop gets steeper the higher the price point. And so the goal here is if you have 100 people or 1,000 people or 10,000 people hitting your offer page, you want to capture as many of those and activate them to become buyers so that you can then leverage that relationship later, not like in a dirty way, but just compound that relationship from buyer to repeat buyer, which is a much easier task. And that is the entire goal and why low ticket front end products are so popular, so successful, and have been around for so long and will probably continue to be, right? I always think about the Columbia Records offer, 99 cents for, 10 CDs or whatever it was back in the 90s and early 2000s, right? Like empires have been built on low-end front-end offers because it activates the customer and then they can get them to repeat buy. So any final words of wisdom, David, you want to leave us with?
I do want to say that a lot of people, especially in online marketing, will try and convince you of doing a certain thing because it benefits them for doing so. So if you do hear people saying things like, you need to have a low ticket offer in your business, you have to do this, I hear that a lot and I think, well, okay, it is a good idea, but I think you as a business owner or as the employee talking to your boss, now that you've listened to this and now you're super smart, I think that's on you guys to figure out if it fits in your business, right? If you're selling high-end, if you're selling yachts for $50,000, would a low ticket offer be a good idea? I don't know.
I grew up in the boating industry. I hate to break it to you, man. Yachts ain't 50 grand.
Oh, okay.
But
see, that shows you how much I know about yachts.
You're missing some zeros, my friend.
If you're getting a really nice rowboat for 50 grand.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah. So yeah, like use your discretion. Don't believe in somebody's advice if they're telling you have to have this, because the truth is you don't. So take this information, and if it seems like you're in an industry where you can apply it, give it a shot. Worst that can happen is it falls on its face, and then you move forward.
Big takeaway there is test, right? Because it's also easy to say, I think a lot of business owners will say, oh, that doesn't apply to me because my business is unique snowflake and no one else has a business like mine. No one else has a business model like mine. And that may be true, but the odds of that are so small that you're probably actually letting your ego and hubris get in the way of data and testing that will tell you if an offer works. Because I can tell you from personal experience on our last software as a service, the contest platform we've mentioned before in this podcast, a huge portion of our sales came from free leads that then got exposed to a low ticket front end offer, right? And it was a $10 fill in the blank guidebook, but then that turned into $1 million funnel, right? So like, do not let your hubris get in the way of success, right? You may be different. You may be the yacht sales guy who has to create these bespoke, curated, high-end experiences to wine and dine. And then when you do make a sale, it's 5, 10, 50, $100 million. Maybe that's you. It's probably not. So give it a test, see if it works in your business. And I think you'll be amazed. As long as you pair it, if you go back and watch our previous episode about the upsell, downsell, pair it with that, because the low ticket on its own is not going to get you often where you want to be if your market makes sense for that, which most of them do. You have to pair it with some kind of upsell, downsell funnel or way to ascend that customer through your process. Otherwise, you're just selling cheap stuff. So that's what I have to say about that.
Love it.
Cool. Well, if you want more information, we have as always, a full-length blog post below about how to think about these offers, how to structure them, and go into a little bit more detail. But David, thank you so much for joining us. How can people get in touch with you and learn more?
Yeah, absolutely. So if you're a digital creator looking to sell and exit your newsletter, you can join my newsletter at wealthyinbox.news and figure out how to dress up your newsletter and get it ready for prom night. So that's it.
Cool. And if you're looking to run the email on the back end of your newly acquired front end customers, we have an email platform called Campaign Refinery where we do a lot of things to make sure that you're actually able to get your email into the inbox so that those new buyers have a chance to hear from you, understand your message, understand what you're trying to get them to accomplish, and ascend through your funnel. So there's a link for that down below. All right, David, as always, thanks. Talk soon.
All right.